All right, so welcome everybody for like the third or fourth time. But anyways, welcome to today's discussion session. Today, we're hopefully going to have a very fruitful discussion on how MNCs, multinational corporations, and IGOs, intergovernmental organizations, exploit or threaten poor nations and contribute to climate change. So a very loaded topic, but I'm sure we can handle it. So to get us started, so the, sorry, I'm gonna have to check something real quick. Okay, so as y'all know, you guys signed up for our GWOA event. This event is conducted by MUN Impact. We're a global youth NGO that advances Model UN and the UN Sustainable Developmental Goals through virtual programs and events. Today, as part of our Global Week of Action, we will be hosting a discussion forum on, as I mentioned, how MNCs and IGOs contribute to worsening the development of countries as well as climate change. So I'd like to very quickly ask all of you if you can drop in the chat box where you're from, which countries you're from, that'd be great. So I'm here in sunny Texas, here in the United States. What about the rest of y'all?
I'm from India.
Yeah, okay, we've got Morocco, India as well. Great, okay, Morocco as well, very cool. Okay, that's great that we have a very, we have attendees that are very concentrated in one particular group of region of the world. So hopefully we can have some good discussion out of that. So to get us going, I want to very quickly share with you guys this brochure that is going to give you more information on today's topic that we're discussing. So just give me 1 second. There we go. Okay, so what are MNCs? MNCs, also known as multinational corporations, are one that has business operations in 2 or more countries. At least 25% of the company's expenses come from a branch or office in the country other than its home country. Examples include Apple, Microsoft, Coca-Cola. So basically companies that have a very large global or regional presence, think McDonald's, think your Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer. These are all countries that export their products and do business in multiple countries around the world. So that's what constitutes a multinational corporation. And so what are IGOs? The term intergovernmental organization refers to an entity created by treaty involving 2 or more nations to work in good faith on issues of common interest. These entities are subject to international law, unlike NGOs. Examples include the EU, UN, and WHO. So these are all IGOs. So what is exploitation of natural resources? Resources are depleted when it is being used faster than it can replenish itself. And all of this began during the Industrial Revolution, obviously, when we started burning coal and doing a lot more industrial activities that contribute to climate change. So obviously, how does all of this link to climate change? When we use up natural resources excessively, especially when MNCs and IGOs use up resources excessively, increasing population means increasing demands, and to fulfill all of those needs, industries require these natural resources. So industries like gem and mineral mining also destroy the world's ecological sustainability, leading to deforestation and the destruction of natural habitats. So the world's 100 top companies have been the source of more than 70% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions since 1988, and air pollution is one of the major consequences of poor production techniques, while water pollution is a result of poor water management. And so here is today's big question, the sort of point that we'll be using to discuss. So MNCs often contribute to pollution and the use of non-renewable resources. For example, some MNCs have been criticized for environmental degradation in developing countries where pollution standards are lower. So a lot of material to work with today, but I think we can handle it. So very quickly, before we begin, also we have a 100 Deeds challenge that has been going on. This 100 Deeds challenge basically means that we have a list of 100 actions that you can take to support climate action. And this list was made by MUN Impact and its partners. And we highly encourage you guys to participate. So I'm sharing a link right now in the chat box. Right here. So this is the link to our brochure. And I'm also sharing a link on our deed submission portal. So if you were to complete one of these deeds and you want to share that information with us, please, we'd love it if you fill out this submission portal. So please go check out both those resources, and we look very much to seeing what sort of action you guys take for the SDGs today. Okay, so getting into it finally. So very first off is we're gonna have a simple question. What are what ways can you guys think of that MNCs and IGOs contribute to climate change and exploiting developing nations? Okay, maybe I can start off with an example. So say a country wanted to build like maybe Yusuf. Yeah, Yusuf, go ahead.
Yes, so I have an example. In an East African country, there's the petroleum companies of French. It's a massive company, and it's exploiting oil there. It threatens the ecological system there because and a lot of they threaten also the biodiversity there because they're building something in a lake, and it has many fishes that are pretty rare there.
So you're saying big companies can do like deforestation by burning down trees, and they can get away with it because they're big companies?
Yes,
gotcha.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is one of the major problems of having MNCs and IGOs with a lot of power. So thank you for bringing that up. Sanyam, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, so can you just confirm, can you hear me?
Yes, with what?
Yeah, I would like to say that many big MNCs companies have set up their factories in LEDCs countries because of the low cost, and they are using the natural resources, because of which there is pollution. And as it was before stated by Yusuf, that as they have more power, they could get away with this. But I like to look at the solution rather than the problem. So as you all know that the problem is mostly produced by the MNCs, but they could also solve it, as many big companies has partnered with small companies who builds very good and environmentally friendly product, like some like the electric cars. They are very good for the environment, and like Tesla, it is getting very big, and it is also an MNC. So I think that many MNCs are also destroying the nature, while many MNCs are also saving the nature by.
Sorry, Sanyam, you muted yourself.
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, for sure, definitely. So maybe having more big companies partner with smaller companies that are doing a good for the environment, that is a great way to encourage MNCs to help the countries they're working in rather than just exploiting them. So thanks for bringing that up. Mahi, go ahead.
So I think another way that these major companies affect climate change is through the use of plastic. And at this point, I think we are living in an age where it's almost impossible to not use plastic in your daily life, because it's always going to be there. Like, even if we can ban plastic straws, there's just so much plastic around us. And when we look at major companies like Walmart and IKEA, which really sell so many of their products in plastic, even if it's like fruits and vegetables, they have like a covering of plastic over it. And that just contributes to so much of plastic pollution, which ends up in our ocean. Like, it's insane when you see how much plastic there is in the ocean, and just it's like really hard for us to not use plastic, because even though there are alternatives, these major companies keep using these plastics and they somehow end up in our home, because these big companies have so much impact on our shopping and the way we live. And another would be like deforestation. Of course, like the way you produce things like chocolate. I know that the cocoa planting deforestation is a huge thing, because like a lot of plants are burned when you need cocoa for making chocolate. So I think those are some of the major ways. And then of course, like even fashion companies use pretty not ecological methods to produce their materials.
Absolutely. So maybe since Sanyam started us down this path of like solutions, so maybe it starts by changing what consumers want. So telling consumers to buy sustainable food, buy sustainable fashion. Maybe that's sort of the solution here. Go ahead, Abhirav.
MNCs themselves are not predominantly bad by the nature. It's the contract by the sovereign government which binds them to extract the resources. Mostly these companies are backed with a certain agenda which keeps them strong. And sometimes these MNCs overpower the legitimate government, like the example of Peru, a country in South America, where a company has seized the water resources, the water infrastructure of that country, and are demanding the higher price for that. Therefore, a regulated use of MNCs and use of MNCs and IGOs can be very beneficial to the country itself, provided that it is constrained and restricted. Thank you.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, definitely. That's a great point. Stronger regulations are needed for sure to regulate how MNCs can do business. Thanks for bringing that up. Ayush, go ahead.
Hello, the developing countries may be poor by the economy, but surely they are richer by the natural resources. And what the developed MNCs try to do is to use these natural resources for their own benefits. This is a huge blunder for all of the world, for whole of the world, as we see its impact mainly in Antarctica. We see the ice melting, we see everything going down. And even though the MNCs are trying to utilize all the natural resources available in the developing countries, the human resource is not improving over there. They are just trying every manipulative way through government, through NGOs, or through any other private ways to go over every hurdle they face, and just to exploit more money from each and everything available to them.
Yeah, that's true. That's an incredibly good point. Because fundamentally, all companies, whether big or small, the primary goal is to make money, to have profits. And sometimes that comes at the expense of other countries and people. So yeah, so maybe as we, entertain the next few raised hands, let's try and think about solutions, So let's try and think in a more solution-oriented way, and maybe see if we can find some creative ways to solve this problem. Go ahead, Mahi.
I wanted to sort of add on to what Abhirav said about like the Peru situation with water. I know a similar case happened in Bolivia, where like their public water service was basically privatized by a San Francisco-based corporation. I think it was called Bechtel or something. So basically Bechtel, which was based in San Francisco, seized control of Bolivia's water service. And the World Bank, which is an IGO, was the one who helped them sort of negotiate this. So you can really see how like when you have a superpower like the US and then you have Bolivia, obviously the US has the upper hand. And when you have the World Bank on your side, there was no way for people in Bolivia to sort of combat that situation. And all they could do was protest, and they had to stop sending their kids to school because there wasn't enough water for them. And then they had to eat less, they had to pay for water. It just got very messy for them. And the government kept defending Bechtel because that was like, they had the upper hand in the situation. And then you just see how a country like Bolivia and the people had to struggle at the hands of like, you can say like a tyrannical government.
Yeah, that's very true. Maybe this is what modern neo-colonialism and imperialism looks like. Okay, I believe Yusuf was next.
Yes, I just want to say that since we all know that plastic is harmful, I mean, we should have regulations around the world because when we see countries in Southeast Asia, like Philippines, they have a lot of plastics that goes into the ocean, which is very harmful. So I think that regulations could help us deal with it and preserve the marine the fish that live in the oceans. And that might be hard to accomplish, but we must do it. Thank you.
For sure, yeah. I think multiple people here have said, strengthening regulations, but then you also have to think about enforcing regulations. So if the government accepts contracts that are bad for the country, but give them money, like, corruption, that's also like how none of those regulations can be effectively enforced. So maybe if we can come up with some ideas on how to effectively enforce regulations, that would also be good. Also in the chat box, so Ayush mentioned some solutions by going neutral, carbon neutral, and redefining the IPR and patent rights. Yeah, those are definitely good points. And Abriyav, yes, true. I guess stuff like that is more pure capitalism. Okay, go ahead, Ayush.
See, none of the rat develops a rat trap, but the greed of money to these MNCs has definitely created a havoc for the humankind. We are heading towards what we say is a total destruction. We see every basic rights like water is going like water, and now in the pandemic, this air, the oxygen is also even priced. We are getting on the cost of something that nature has provided us for free. We have capitalized everything. Everything in this world matters now except the lives. Everything has a value except the human lives in this world, and for that we need to have some solutions, and one of the major solutions could be IPR rights. If we redefine the IPR and patent rights, we could solve a lot of problem. For example, the India and South Africa have put a petition in WTO to avoid this patent over vaccinations, but Germany has raised a position over this. So it's because all the profit comes, and now in this pandemic, though they have suffered a lot, but they are trying to utilize this situation also as a profit making for their own mini minded benefits.
Absolutely, yeah, that's a big concern. Maybe do you want to elaborate a bit more on how the IPR and patent rights relate specifically to climate change?
Yes, IPR rights, for example, many of the MNCs of US, I would like to mention US, they try to utilize the things that are naturally available to the developing countries. They try to utilize these resources, get a patent over this, so that the local people don't have access to this. For example, there was a case over Indian basmati rice that was won later by the Indian government, but it had a huge impact on how the local things like local remedies for medicines, local innovatives, local things going on around the world are utilized by MNCs to capitalize. So that what actually happens because of this is that the company makes money, company gets all the resources, company gets all the knowledge for free, and the local people who are unaware of the things going on the level of WTO, going on the level of patents, going on international level, are deprived of the basic amenities that they have experienced for ages.
Yes, that's very true. Yeah, I think Abhinav just mentioned in the chat, world organizations like the WTO need to reorganize themselves and focus towards all and not only developed countries. So yeah, that's definitely true. It kind of complements what you said, Ayush, that when developing countries try to go up against bigger nations in trade disputes or even just court cases, the chips are stacked against them because that's just how power works in the international sphere. So yeah, things need to change in that direction for sure. Abhirav, I think you were next.
To find a solution for this pure capitalism that we are facing, the solution for this is a firm state policy for this kinds of corporation. But as we can see, as a matter of fact, that the countries who are suffering with the neo-colonialism or the pure capitalism, as we fashionably Christian it, these nations have been in the past have been screwed over by either capitalist or communist-backed coups and sponsored governments. So it is impossible for them to have a firm state policy. Another solution for the another mainstream solution for us is to go to the international organizations and NGOs and IGOs. But for that, we must also realize that these organizations, these corporations, are mostly run and financed by bigger nations or by the capitalists themselves, like the bloc in the organizations are often dominated. So what is the solution? The solution the solution can neither be brought by the working class nor it can be brought by the capitalist. It can only be brought by the educated middle class. Hence, the educated middle class should take several, I would say, radical steps in order to drive these MNCs back to the sea. Thank you.
I see. Okay. All right. That's an interesting perspective. But maybe when we think about solutions, yes, of course, there are different social classes to keep in mind. But in some ways, climate change is really something where people from all social classes, from all walks of life, really need to work together to petition their governments, to maybe boycott as consumers or whatever it is to affect change. So what I've been sharing here on my screen is basically this Google document with a student action platform. I think it'd be nice if we can end today's session with a very strong list of items that we can say, hey, as students, this is what we think MNCs, big corporate interests, the big governments need to do. So maybe if people want to start suggesting, because sorry, I know there was stuff said before, but it's hard to keep track. So maybe starting from now, you guys can suggest things to go on this list, and then we can create this nice list of action. Sanyam, you want to go ahead?
Yeah. So I totally agree with Aviraj as he said that consumers are also at fault, as it can be seen that because of fast fashion, it is not the fault of MNCs but also the fault of consumers, and hence I think that instead of changing or harshening the policies because of which economy would fall or because of which economy would not be stable, we should instead change the mind of the people or the consumers instead, because they are the one buying the products instead of and they are the one that are causing this. So I think that it would be more better to change the mindset of the consumer instead of changing or harshening the policies.
Okay. Maybe other speakers can elaborate on what do we mean by how we can change the minds of consumers. Okay, Mahi, go ahead.
I think one of the easiest ways would be, well, it's not very easy, but boycotting like these MNCs. But I think boycotting is very tricky because, for example, we know that Nestle is a terrible company. But the thing is that Nestle owns so many other companies that it's almost like, even if you boycott Nestle, there's a chance that you can't boycott their other chains. For example, they have control over Nestea, Nescafe, Friskies. Like there are so many like companies that they have contracts with that it can become really hard to boycott them. But I think we have to, like, as consumers, we have to try our best to not support these MNCs, especially when we know how bad they are. Like, look for alternatives, or maybe just look for like locally produced goods, especially if you're living in a developing country. I think when you know these MNCs are hurting your country in particular, you should really support your local farmers and your local industries. So I think boycotting is one of the easiest ways to do it, but it can also be tricky.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point. Also, Abhinav mentioned in the chat box, write letters and emails to concerned elected representatives regarding MNCs and forcing them to enforce the regulations. Honestly, that is true. If your politicians aren't willing to enforce regulations, call them out. So yeah, that's definitely a great point. Okay. I believe Anushka, you were next.
Yes. Am I audible?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, like Abhirav and Mahi said, we can end up by approaching the ministers and the heads of the companies to look up for other alternatives that can help us to protect our environment. We can help them in finding the alternatives as well. They can start up with small steps only. Like if like Mahi was talking about the Nestle company, they make a lot of products and they can start up by using a small product only. Like if they are selling their tea bags in a plastic bag, they can transfer, they can change it with some other alternative. Then they can move ahead with some other items like the noodles or the pastries they make. They can change the alternatives. They can look up for the alternatives step by step, not exactly doing all the things together, but by moving ahead step by step.
That's a great point. Yeah, it is hard to achieve all the change we want at once. So maybe every time, it's brought to our attention that, say, one company A is doing like a bad practice somewhere in the world, then we boycott until we see that change happen.
Yes,
That is,
exactly.
yeah, that's definitely a great way. I mean, ultimately, that's what consumer action is, being cognizant of the problems, how companies are contributing to them. So yeah, great point. Yusuf, I believe you're next.
Yes, I would like to say that big companies should fund programs that will protect the environment, because all they do is polluting, and they're earning a lot of money. So why don't they spend a little money to protect the environment by helping do rangers or something else to protect the environment?
Definitely. Yeah, that's a great point. Maybe if somebody can think up of some specific cases where where companies are running sustainable programs, that'd be great. Abir, go ahead.
Adding to the point put forth by Mahi, the companies such as Nestle, other big corporations, these corporations often tend to form an entity like a trust. So I think to tackle these kind of companies, we should revise the trust busting laws so that these big corporations can be divided and then be tackled one at a time. Therefore, it will be really convenient for the common people to protest and boycott these companies. Thank you.
For sure. Okay. It may be a bit of a stretch to encourage all big, and so maybe instead of just as a whole, just strengthening regulations on business, maybe is that a better way to phrase things? Because we don't necessarily want to break up all corporations. Yeah, okay. Great point. Wow, there's so many people now. Sanyam, I think you were next.
Yes, so I would like to elaborate on the third point. So as Yusuf said that we should encourage companies to run environmental friendly programs. So I think I totally support that point, because like that, the environment would also be safe. And some example of that is that DHL, a delivery company, has used electric vehicles to deliver the products. Also, Burger King now uses grills that are more efficient and less takes less power, and which is more good for the environment. So I think that like that, many companies can do the initiative so that the economy is also not punished and environment is also.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point. In fact, this is a great example, In a previous like discussion session, I believe somebody mentioned that, you know, in developing countries, it may be hard for people to afford electric vehicles. So in cases like that, it should be governments and corporations who operate in the area that should change their vehicles and adopt EV. So this is a great example. Thank you. Anushka? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, we cannot change the past, but we can move ahead with a new approach. Like the new companies which are coming up, they can move ahead with some goals, like they should take a charge of some other place. They can handle up that place, or using their trash, they can set up their new buildings, or UN can help all the countries in doing this task. Like the new companies which are coming up, they can give them responsibility of a place that is still not. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, yeah, go ahead.
That do not have enough resources to help themselves. So like many big companies are coming up with new projects, so they can take up in charge of these places in order to help them develop also, or they can use up the trash, and they can also use up the trash from big countries like India or America. They can use the trash of their countries, or the things which are not in their use, but they can use up in setting up their infrastructure, or they can help in making up their products.
I see. Okay, so basically what you're sort of saying is companies, when running environmentally friendly initiatives, should prioritize investing in developing countries. Awesome, okay. Okay, just wanted to read something Kanishka said in the chat. MNCs mainly develop in the developing countries with the thought of boosting their economic development and are normally accepted with this notion. If there could be a better way to have greater development, the path for MNCs would be difficult and would be beneficial in some way. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, in a way, you know, whenever we think of the idea of foreign investment, when a country develops its economy through foreign investment, it's usually MNCs who are doing that. So if there's another way to achieve that kind of economic development without, you know, having abusive corporate practices, that would definitely be a great solution. Ayush, go ahead. Ayush, you're muted.
See, this is not the way that we should go for boycotting MNCs, because that will
Okay, maybe we'll come back to you later, Ayush. It seems like you have to mute there for a second. Mahi, go ahead.
I think another solution could be, I don't know who said it in this session, but like avoiding fast fashion, because nowadays fashion companies like Versace and Gucci are just so obsessed with putting out the latest fashions out there. But the truth is that it is really like these practices are really harmful to the environment, because like the faster you make these fabric and materials, the more resources you're going to use and the more you're going to pollute the environment. So rather, instead of going for these high-end brands, what I think we should do as consumers is maybe go like, maybe even rent clothes. Like I know if you need a little bit of inspiration, I know that AOC recently said that she often rents clothes for like if she has like meetings or like small sessions in city. And I know a lot of celebrities nowadays are moving to like renting clothes, because like you don't always need to buy new clothes if you're going like out. You can just rent clothes, or maybe even support your local industries. Like I know in countries like India, there is just so much local in clothing industry that supporting them would be so much better than supporting these MNCs, because not only are they cheaper, but they are more environmentally friendly, and the practices used by local industries are just more authentic.
Absolutely, yeah. In fact, you know, consumer action in terms of like boycotting these fast fashion brands, I know that that's been a growing movement in the past years. That movement has actually been successful. Recently, I believe, I'm not sure, one of the high-end brands, I think it was Gucci, or I'm not sure which one, basically said that they're gonna stop using like the normal fashion calendar because, you know, having to make new products and put those out seasonally is very damaging to the environment. So that's a good example of which, you know, how consumer action, consumer boycotts and consciousness has really helped achieve meaningful change, for sure. Yusuf, go ahead.
Yes, so we can reduce the use of single-use items because they are very harmful to nature. Since we use them, we just automatically throw them, and they are mostly made of plastic, which is very harmful. And if we can prioritize long time items that we can use for a very long time, that would be great. Since we not have to throw it anymore.
Okay.
That's I mean, price of these items are expensive compared to the single-use items. That's the only problem.
I see.
Thanks.
Okay. Your audio may have been a bit unclear. Are you referring to recycling?
No, I said that we should ignore single-use items like
Okay,
plastic straws and stuff.
I see. Great point. Okay. Abira, yeah, Abira, go ahead.
I would like to bring attention to the committee that while discussing the climate change, we are only discussing the carbon-related emissions, while we are totally alienating the other hazardous materials which affect the climate change, like the industries which are settled by the river or the sea, dump their toxic waste into the oceans, etc. And many harmful gases are released from these companies. So there should be a international law binding these companies to for the proper treatment of their waste.
That's a great point. Okay. All right, before Anushka, before we get to you, I just want to quickly read through some of the things that has been happening in the chat box. So Akshira mentioned, I think MNCs need to be sensitized about their responsibilities because boycotting can't be a good option. MNCs, okay, that is an interesting opinion. Yeah, for sure. We don't want to destroy MNCs. MNCs are technically a good thing. But we have to find a way to pressure them into, making the action that we want. Or there may, and Kanishka mentioned, or there may be a way that the economic development caused by the MNCs has to be used for climate protection only. And there has to be a proper check on that. The whole report of that must be given to the authorities working for saving the environment. Good point. It would be completely dependent on these MNCs and it would be drastic. Okay. Okay, so all right, what I'm sort of seeing is that there's this idea that we have economic development versus climate change. Like the two things can't really, there may be some conflict there. So is there a way that we can have both economic development as well as sustainability? Is there a way that we can have both? Maybe you guys can do some quick research and see if we can find some ways to do that. Okay, Anushka, if you want to, you can go ahead.
Yes, exactly. Like we were talking about the fashion industry, not only clothes, but also the cosmetic products that are used by models and all. Some unnecessary products are also present there, like the material in which all the cosmetics are packed, the boxes, and some other stuff are also present in that. They are not really useful, and the companies can look up for alternatives for that, using the recyclable products or not putting up the unnecessary things in it.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point. Okay. Abira, go ahead.
Yes. So when we examine the differentiation between the economic development and the climate change, we cannot have, I don't think we can have a substantial balance between both of these, because both of these are polar opposites. And while we can have a partially compromising solution between them, but we can never have a complete foolproof solution regarding this.
True, that's for sure. Yeah, obviously the change we want to see probably won't happen as much as we want it to in the next 100 years. But we can do our best. We can use grassroots action as people demanding the change we want, and hopefully we can get pretty far with that. Yusuf, go ahead.
Yes, I think that we can have an economic development and being eco-friendly. I mean, because the economic development will be slow, but places in like here in Morocco, they're investing in solar power plants and like making electric car. That's yes. So we can have economic development and being eco-friendly, but we can't develop faster than a country that doesn't respect the environment, because they can produce like everything they want. An eco-friendly economic development requires is demanding.
I see. Yeah, that's a great point. So maybe the path forward is saying all foreign investment in the future should be somehow beneficial to the environment. That's certainly an interesting perspective. Okay, so going back to this, Ayush sent a paragraph. So boycotting MNCs is never a solution, as it would snatch livelihood of just millions of people. On the other way, MNCs should be forced to adopt the eco ways by the authorized government. For example, in India, McDonald's adopted less plastic use last year, and now they don't offer plastic lids and straws in their meals. The biggest example is Google. One could learn from them that they're achieving their goals towards being carbon neutral. Many local companies and startups are now offering discounts on using paper bags. For example, Ayush met a local vendor who was offering lower prices on veggies to those who carried paper bags, and it was inspiring to the fellow. That's really nice. Wow, that's really encouraging. The boycotting thing is a good point. How about in true MUN fashion, let's have a vote on this subpoint A right here. So if I'm sorry, I don't know how to set up a Zoom poll, but you can use like the raise hand function. So all those who are in favor of keeping this, raise your hand.
Sorry, please repeat.
Okay, so all those who are in favor of keeping 1A, boycotting MNCs until they change their practices, raise your hand. If you are in favor, if you want to keep it, raise your hand. Okay, we have 5 votes against a lot more votes again. Okay, that's fine then. In that case, I guess we'll remove this. We'll remove this clause. Okay. But I do want to, maybe if somebody can propose a point, because I really like what Ayush mentioned about the local vendor and his veggies. So maybe how small local businesses can provide incentives to change the minds of consumers. Maybe if somebody wants to elaborate on that, then we can add it to this list. Okay, Mihika, do you want to speak? Or maybe you were raising your hand for the, okay. Does someone else want to speak? Okay, that's fine. Maybe we'll just, Yusuf, go ahead.
I think also we should raise awareness, because a lot of people in underdeveloped and developing countries are not aware of climate change. All they care about is their revenue, and that's the problem in most of the developing countries that are polluting a lot. If we look into some African nations and some Asian nations like Indonesia and the Philippines, they're polluting a lot.
Okay, so raising awareness. Okay, maybe if somebody can say how specifically can we raise awareness? What are some specific examples? Go ahead, Mahi.
I mean, I do agree with raising awareness, because I think that we have to stop hoping that MNCs will just magically change their practices, and we have to stop relying on the UN, because like the UN, these are all like IGOs, and we have to realize that they were built on like these post-colonialism theories, and they don't care about the developing countries as much because their loyalties lie with Russia and China and the US. So we have to stop hoping that they will do something for us, because they're not going to do it for us. We have to do it ourselves. And then comes a point, who takes the initiative? Is it people like us who do it? And like, how effective are we in doing it? So I think when it comes to raising awareness, there are a lot of ways to do it, but we really need to realize that there's only so much awareness you can raise, because I think like in today's generation, it becomes a thing to sort of raise awareness about an issue, and then after a week, people forget about it. So we have to find a way to keep it up and just keep it going. And honestly, I don't know how to do that. I would love to hear other ideas on how we can keep that awareness there and not let it fade away, because once it starts fading away from social media, people stop caring about it as well. So we have to find ways to be aware and not let it go away.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point. Abira, go ahead.
In the topic of spreading awareness, we can include a more detailed structure and the consequences in the school syllabus. We can have national days, international days, weeks, even months, and we can, the company, we can advise the government to sponsor some of these programs wherein they spread awareness, because I don't think any of the independent organization, NGO, etc. individuals have enough power than government machinery. Therefore, we must use government machinery to spread the awareness. But we are doing that. The truth here. Yes. Thank you.
Yep, gotcha. Yeah, that's great. Curriculums, events, campaigns. So it starts by petitioning our governments. I'm encouraging them to implement these objectives. Okay, so Kanishka mentioned not only MNCs, but all of us produce some or the other waste which may harm the environment in the larger perspective. True. If the authorities and educators could find some way out for the waste to be handled properly, so that it performs a better role in the government. Okay, that's a good point for sure. Education in schools, yes, definitely. Usage of government machinery, okay. Maybe say government should play a large role here. Okay, is there anyone else who wants to speak? We've got probably five more minutes worth of discussion before we will end out for today.
Yes, we can do one more thing, like the factors like education and health has been made very important for all the people. Along with this, we can also make another section for environment activities as well, that children from childhood only, they should be taught about the environment and the problems that have been caused due to the earlier generations, and they should take up some small steps so that they can live a beautiful life in their future. And if we talk about the big generations, our generations as well, we know about these problems. But if we talk about our parents, this generation gap does not know properly about these problems. So for that, we should ask the government to spread some awareness, to start some awareness programs in order to teach them about the problems and also look up for the solutions.
Great point. Okay. Kanishka also mentioned popular artists or actors more impactful. Yes, true. Okay, so maybe government and public figures, maybe just public figures should play a larger role. Okay, Yusuf, go ahead.
Yes. So as you know, underdeveloped countries and developing countries have very limited funds. So to help them develop their economies and to get more eco-friendly, I think that bigger countries and UN organizations should lend them some, give them a loan or help them develop their economy, because they can't develop their economy and being eco-friendly. That's too hard and too demanding. So to make it easier for them, I think that's granting some funds may be helpful for them. And thank you for listening.
Okay, so you mean like government should give MNCs grants, or?
I mean, government or MNCs or organization, I mean, because that's hard to.
Okay, so maybe we're talking like pressuring companies to run environmentally friendly programs and campaigns. So, and encouraging them to front the money themselves. Okay, seeing as we don't have much time left, I think it'd be great if we can all go around the room and then each of us, you know, whether chat box, if you want to come on the mic, that's okay, but I would really appreciate everyone to participate in this. Let's each think of one thing we can do to help contribute to this list. It can be, you know, like say reposting something on Instagram, that's cool. Or it could be calling your state and local representative to suggest something. Or it could be, you know, choosing not to purchase a certain brand because of their environmental black record. So let's go around the room, starting with me. One would probably be definitely boycotting fast fashion. That's a big one. H&M, for example, Zara, some of those are the names that are known for not exactly being very good towards the environment. So for me, it starts by boycotting, or not boycotting, but like, you know, not patronizing those companies. Does someone else want to propose what they're going to do? Go ahead, Yusuf.
I think that in my country, raising awareness is very important, because we have a lot of people that haven't been to school, and they're using a lot of single-use items, as I said before. So I think that, yeah, raising awareness is very important, and I think that I can do it by helping people, even doing something.
Absolutely, yeah, that's a great idea. Even talking about it to your friends, you know, because a lot of us know about climate change, but maybe how MNCs and IGOs contribute to that, you know, is something that's lesser known, because we see stuff like, you know, companies would say, oh, we're running this eco-friendly initiative, and we think, oh, they're doing such good work. But then what we don't realize is somewhere else in another part of the world, they're slash and burning forests, you know, like those are things we don't know about, and raising attention about them is really one of the most important things we can do, for sure. Abira, if you had your hand raised just now, would you like to go ahead? If not, that's totally fine.
Yes. I would say that I would try to invest into more environment-friendly products, and reduce the spectrum of superficiality in products, and make a post about it on social media. That's what we can do.
For sure. Yes, definitely. Good point. You know, some of you who may invest in the stock market, I mean, that's totally possible for us as teenagers to do. If you want, you know, invest in green tech, you know, don't invest in oil. Don't, obviously, like, please don't. That is terrible. Let's not try and perpetuate that industry. But investing in green tech, investing in companies that have sustainable practices, that's definitely a good point. Mahi, go ahead.
Similar to Abhirav, I'm gonna continue like sharing posts on Instagram, because self-education is very important, and so is passing on that education to your friends and your family. And I'm also gonna continue boycotting some companies, and by that I mean, if I don't feel the need to buy something from Nestle, why should I do it? You know, I'm not being held at gunpoint to buy something from them. I would rather buy from something else. So I'm gonna continue finding alternatives and companies that are like more responsible and more environmentally friendly.
Absolutely. Yeah. Go ahead, Anushka.
Yes, I would like to purchase environment-friendly products and looking up for the alternatives that can help us to protect our environment. And along with that, I would like to conduct some small awareness programs with our family, neighbors, or gathering up a small community only, and teaching up the people who are not able to go to school or who are not aware about these programs or these problems that have been conducted in our environment.
Absolutely. Great point. Neha, go ahead.
We could teach or could spread the awareness of how the environment is being harmed to our friends and family and everybody we know. And we can also try making ads or something which could help, or we could post this on social media and stuff.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Once again, education, raising awareness, those are the most important things. So even a simple social media post can do that. Jin, go ahead.
Okay, thanks so much. So, we need to, at first we need to awareness, and if we post to the social network server like a Facebook or Twitter or something like that, maybe we need to translate like a UN language. I mean English, Chinese, French, or something like that. Maybe we need to translate and get awareness. And also here the how many 14 members. So we need to, if we once we post it, and we need to follow each other or retweet each other's or share each other's and make the with using the hashtag, some specific hashtag like GWOA or something like that. Then we need to make the Twitter storm in the social network service. And if we get a trend in the Twitters as using the hashtag, maybe we will get to the more attention to some other non-relations persons. So that's my idea, and we can do it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up, Jin, actually, because we are very fortunate for this. Our GWOA event is actually partnered with the World Environment Day. They recently reached out to us and we were able to partner with them. And so whenever you are, if you are going to post something about the GWOA or something about like this event in general, highly encourage you guys to use any of these hashtags as well as the GWOA hashtag, because these are, the results of our affiliation with our partners. So greatly appreciated. Okay, Neha, did you still want to speak or is your hand just raised?
Sorry.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, I think we have a really good, Anushka, did you want to go? No? Oh, okay, sorry, never mind. Okay, so yeah, thank you, thank you for this. This has been a really great discussion. And we're gonna close things out here. Before we go, if we can all get a screenshot of this event, that'd be great. So please turn on your cameras if you're able to, and then we'll take a quick picture, all right? So hopefully a bunch more of us can turn on our cameras. Okay, great to see everybody, awesome. All right. Okay, taking in 3, 2, 1, cheese. Thank you, this has been great. Okay, and regarding this student action platform that we wrote together, we will be formatting this into a nice looking document and we will share it with our mailing list. So if you registered for the event, you will receive this on our mailing list. It will also be on our social media. It may just take a couple of days, but it'll be sent eventually. So all in all, I really want to thank all of you for participating today. This has been a really great discussion, a difficult topic, but we all handled it amazingly. Not only that, but also, as I previously said, if you guys are interested in joining our 100 Deeds list, our 100 Deeds campaign, the link is in the chat box for the brochure, and then the link to our submission portal as well. So if you want to, if you feel inspired, you want to take action, those are some of the ways in which you can take action. But that's about it. Thank you all for coming today, and hopefully we'll see you in another session of GWOA. Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.